How are you guys doing? Today is Thursday, October 7th, 2021. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an elite individual profile on Mookie Betts. The elite outfielder for the Los Angeles Dodgers turns 29 today, and my intention with this profile is, of course, to shine light on what he's been able to accomplish, along with his accolades and achievements for his MLB career that hasn't even lasted a decade, but is incredibly amazing up until this point. Mookie Betts is one of the more impressive players in baseball, regarded by many as one of the all-around best baseball players. He is a player that's shown for the Red Sox and for the Los Angeles Dodgers that when he's locked in, there's literally nothing he can't do. And even though baseball is a sport where the team's success is entirely predicated on the collective success of the individual parts, Mookie Betts has shown that even with his position that he plays at right field, he can show that he's more than valuable just at his position, but for team success as well. If you're unfamiliar with how he plays, he's just a very athletic and a very coordinated baseball player. He is one of the best defensive players in all of baseball. He has won Gold Gloves. He's actually won 5 of them in a row, to give a sense of how well he can play defense. And of course, to be really good, especially to win like consecutive Gold Gloves as a defender, I mean, it shows your skill. And of course, he was able to win 4 Silver Sluggers, which means that he was one of the best hitting outfielders as well. It's very rare that you can find this amazing combination of offense and defense in a player, which is why Mookie Lynn Betts is regarded as one of the best players over the second half of the 2010s in the MLB. And as we enter into the 2020s, he's showing that he's still one of the best players in baseball, showing as to why he earned that $300 million contract for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He signed a 12-year, $365 million deal, and I'm going to get into what led to him signing that deal and what happened after. So originally Mookie Betts is he's originally from Smyrna, Tennessee. As a young high school player, he would actually go on to be named a bowling champion in addition to being an all-around high school athlete. He did go on to play baseball, basketball, and alongside with bowling. Following his high school career, he would be taken within the 5th round of the 2011 MLB draft. He was taken with the 102nd overall pick as he was drafted as a second baseman. He would eventually go on to be promoted by the Boston Red Sox in his age 21 season in 2014. In his age 21 season in 2014, he would play 52 games of a season where the Red Sox would finish with a 71-91 record and completely miss the playoffs altogether. This was the year after they had beat the Cardinals in the World Series in 2013. In Mookie Betts' first debut season, in which he would show the world what he was capable of, he would finish with 55 hits in 52 games, which is of course very impressive for someone making their very first impression on the season, which is also the amount of games that he played in this most recent MLB season, in which they didn't play the full season. But regardless, alongside his 55 hits in 52 games, he finished with 34 runs, which is a lot of runs in those 52 games. He would finish with 12 doubles, 5 home runs, 18 RBIs, a .291 batting average, and an .812 OPS. While still showing the league what he was very capable of. But following the 2014 season, the Red Sox would not make the playoffs. This would lead into Mookie's first complete season as a Boston Red Sox player. In his age 22 season in 2015, he would play 145 games in a season where the Red Sox would finish with 7 more wins than the previous season. They finished with a 78-84 record, finishing with the worst record in the AL East for the second year in a row. In Mookie Betts' first full season as a Red Sox player, he would finish with 174 hits in 145 games. So in his first full season, he would finish with 162 hits. I like that number because there's 162 games in a season, and it didn't take him 162 games in a season to hit the ball this many times. He would go on to finish with 92 runs as well. as he would not be named an all-star for the year, but he would go on to have an amazing second half of the year. He'd finish with a total of 42 doubles on the year, which would be the first time he eclipsed 40 doubles in his career. He would finish with 8 triples, which is the most triples that he's ever put together in a season to date. He would finish with 18 home runs and 77 RBIs, which of course would be his career highest at the time. He would also finish with 21 stolen bases, the first time he eclipsed 20 stolen bases. He would do all this while playing 97 more games than he did the previous season. His batting average would stay exactly the same at 291. His OPS would move up a slight tick to jump up to 820 for the season. And following the season, the Red Sox wouldn't make the playoffs, but many people were most definitely becoming aware of the player that Mookie Betts was. This would lead into the Mookie Betts breakout season, the season that would see him become an all-star for the very first time. In his age 23 season in 2016, he would go on to play 158 games in a season where the Red Sox would finish with a 93-69 record. They would finish with 15 more wins than the previous season, as for the very first time since Mookie Betts had made it there. They had not only made the playoffs, but they had won the American League East, a very tough division to win. In that 2016 season, Mookie Betts would finish with 214 hits in 158 games. This is the only time in his career that he was able to eclipse 214 hits. He would go on to finish with 122 runs, which by then was the most runs he ever put up in a season, while leading the American League in at-bats for the only time that he's done so in his career. He would finish with 42 doubles, which is just as many doubles as he finished with the previous year. His triples went down from 8 to 5, but that would be the second most he's ever put up in a season. He would finish with 31 home runs, which by then was a career high, and at this point is the second most he's ever put up in a season in his career. He would also put up 113 RBIs, which is the most RBIs he's ever put up in a season. He would finish with 26 stolen bases, the first time he eclipsed 25. He would finish with a 318 batting average, which would be the first time he eclipsed 300. He finished with an 897 OPS, as his slugging percentage was at .534. He would go on to lead the American League in total bases. That is the only time in his career he's led a league in total bases. And, of course, by the end of the year, he would be named an All-Star in 2016 for the very first time in his MLB career. In addition, he would go on to be named a Gold Glove winner in the American League for the very first time in his career. So that's another trophy he'd win for the first time. And he would go on to be given the Wilson Defensive Player of the Year. That's the only time that he's been able to win the Defensive Player of the Year. He was given the Fielding Bible Award, which is given to the best defensive player at each fielding position. So, of course, Mookie Betts was showing that he was one of the best defenders in all of baseball. And he was still able to finish with 200 hits in that season, a season that saw him break out as one of the best. And in the season that saw Rick Porcello win the Cy Young, going into the playoffs, they would go off to face off against the Cleveland Indians. They would end up getting swept in the American League Division Series by the Cleveland Indians in a season that saw the Indians make it to the World Series, where they would end up losing to the Chicago Cubs in 7 games. Following Mookie Betts' first playoff appearance, he would come back for what would be his third full season with the Boston Red Sox. In 2017, his age 24 season, he would go on to play 153 games in a season where the Boston Red Sox would finish with a 93-69 record for the second consecutive year, winning the American League East. In this season, Mookie Betts would go on to finish with 166 hits in 153 games. That's 13 more hits than games played. That's the 4th consecutive year in a row, including his debut season in which he finished with more hits than game played, which is a very tough feat to replicate. He would finish with 100 runs for the second consecutive season. This would go on to be the second most he's ever had in his career at that point. He would finish with 46 doubles, which at that point was a career high. And even at this point, it's the second most doubles he's ever put together in a season. He finished with 24 home runs, and he would finish with 102 RBIs. That is the second time in his MLB career and the most recent time he's ever put up 100 RBIs in a season. He has not put up 100 RBIs in a season to date since that year. And he would go on to finish with 26 stolen bases. He finished with a 264 batting average and an 803 OPS. After finishing as a runner-up in the MVP race in 2016, in a race that would eventually go on to see Mike Trout win it. In 2017, Mookie Betts would go on to be named 6th in MVP voting in a season that saw Jose Altuve take home the hardware for the Houston Astros. And also, in addition to being named an All-Star for the second year in a row, Mookie Betts would be named a Golden Glove winner for the second year in a row. As in 2017, the Boston Red Sox would make it to the first round where they would face off against the Astros. And in the season where Jose Altuve would win the MVP, the Astros would end up beating the Astros would end up going on to beat the Boston Red Sox 3-1 in 4 games, which of course would lead to the Red Sox getting eliminated from playoff contention. And following that season, that would lead into the championship season that Mookie Betts was able to accomplish with the Boston Red Sox. In his 4th full season and in his 5th season with the Boston Red Sox, in his age 25 season in 2018, he would go on to play 136 games in a season where the Boston Red Sox would finish with a 108-54 record. They would finish with the best record in the AFC or in the American League East, as their 108 wins would be the most wins in franchise history. They would go on to win 15 more games in the previous 2 seasons in which they still won the American League East. In the season itself, Mookie Betts would go on to play 136 games, which is 26 games shy of the max. He would still go on to win MVP, and this is how he did it. He would go on to finish with 180 hits and 136 games played, which would be 44 more hits than games played. He finished with 129 runs on the season, which at that point was a career high, and that would be the very first time in his MLB career he led the American League in runs. He would go on to hit a career high in doubles with 47, which is just 1 more than he did the previous year. He would hit 5 triples, which was on par with the second most triples he's hit in a season. He hit 32 home runs, which to date is the most home runs he's ever hit in a season. He would finish with 80 RBIs, which is tied for the third most RBIs he's ever put together in a season. He would finish with 30 stolen bases, which is the most stolen bases he's ever put together in a season, and the only time, or is the second time in his career, or the only time in his career, that he would go on to eclipse 30 stolen bases in his career. He would also go on to finish with a 346 batting average, the second time in his career he's finished with a batting average over 300, and that this would be the highest he's ever put up in his career. Alongside a 438 OBP on-base percentage, he would finish with an American League high 640 slugging percentage to finish with a 1078 OPS. The first time in his career he's finished with an OPS over 900, and definitely the only time he's ever hit with an OPS over 1,000. And in addition to being named an All-Star for the 3rd time in a row and being named the MVP for the only time in his MLB career, he would go on to be named a Gold Glove winner in the American League for the 3rd year in a row, which for an outfielder is incredibly tough to do. And he would go on to win the American League Silver Slugger for the 2nd time in a 3-year span. And looking at how he won that MVP, he would go on to win over the second place Mike Trout. And after winning the MVP, Mookie Betts would join a long line of players to win the MVP, or a not so long line of players to have won the regular season MVP and to have won the World Series in the same year. Once they made the playoffs, they would end up beating their division rivals, the New York Yankees, in the American League Divisional Series. They would end up beating the Astros, the team that beat them the year before, in the American League Central Series, and this was after the Houston Astros had won the World Series in 2017, so they had to beat the defending World Series champs to make it to the World Series to face off against the Dodgers. And once they face off against the Dodgers, they would end up beating the Dodgers in 5 games to win the World Series. In order to pick up their 4th championship in the 21st century, their first championship since 2013, the year that they actually signed Mookie Betts. And like I said, Mookie Betts would join Jose Altuve and Chris Bryant as the 3rd player in a row or the third season in a row in which a player would win the regular season MVP for their team and then win the World Series. Following his World Series title win with the Red Sox, this would lead to his fifth full season, his sixth season with the team, and his final season with the Boston Red Sox. In his age 26 season in 2019, Mookie Betts would go on to play 150 games for a Boston Red Sox team that would finish with an 84-78 record. They would finish with the third best record in the American League East, and after winning the division for 3 straight years, they would find themselves getting eliminated from playoff contention. In the 150 games he played for the Boston Red Sox, Mookie Betts would finish with 176 hits, cementing a 6-year run with the team in which he would finish with more hits than games played in every single season. He finished with 135 runs, which is the most runs that Mookie Betts has ever put together in a season. It will be the second year in a row in which he's led the American League in runs, and he has not done so since because he has left the American League. He would finish with 40 doubles. That would be the fifth consecutive season, the fifth full season in his the fifth time in his 5 full seasons with the Boston Red Sox. He's finished with at least 40 doubles on the year. He finished with 5 triples for the third time in Boston, which would be the second most he's ever put up in a season. He finished with 29 home runs on the year, which is the third most home runs he's ever finished a season with. He would also finish with 80 RBIs, tied with his MVP season for the third most RBIs he's ever put together in a year. He would also go on to finish with a .295 batting average, which, in addition to his debut season, would be the 5th time in his MLB career he had a batting average of at least .290. And he would finish with a .915 OPS, which at that point was the second highest OPS he's ever put together in a season, behind his MVP season. And at the conclusion of the year, in the middle of the year, he was named an All-Star for the 4th consecutive season, which is a very tough feat to do. And he was able to do so while winning the Gold Glove for the 4th consecutive year. He would win the Silver Slugger in the American League for the 2nd straight year and the 3rd time in a 4-year stretch. He would go on to finish 8th in MVP voting in a season where Mike Trout would go on to win it for the Los Angeles Angels. And in Mookie Betts' final season with the Boston Red Sox, which would see, of course, that would see him win like this silverware, or that would see him win all this. Like I said, he would go on to win his 4th Gold Glove, his 3rd Silver Slugger, and he was a 4-time All-Star and a 1-time American League MVP by the time he would get traded by the Boston Red Sox to the LA Dodgers. He was traded alongside David Price for players like Alex Verdugo, Connor Wong, and Jeter Downs. And of course, there were cash considerations. And once he was traded to the Dodgers would end up signing him to a 12-year contract extension through the 2032 season, worth $365 million, and it did include a $65 million signing bonus. So, of course, that is what Mookie Betts' contract was looking like for him to, of course, stay with the Dodgers. And ever since he signed that contract, he has been a member of the Los Angeles Dodgers. His very first season with the Dodgers was in 2020, and that was when the entire MLB was sidelined for the first 3 months of the season due to COVID. So they had to shorten the season to 60 games, and they had to expand the playoffs to 8 different teams. Regardless, Mookie Betts would go on to be a member of the team that would finish with the best regular season record in baseball. In his age 2020 season, in his first season with the LA Dodgers, he would go on to play 55 games for an LA Dodgers team that would finish with a 43-17 record, like I said, the best in the major leagues. And he would go on to play as many games as he played in his debut season, or like just 3 more games than he played in his debut season in 2014 with the Red Sox. In the 55 games he played, he finished with 64 hits, which would go on to continue his 7-season streak of having more hits than games played. He finished with 47 runs on the season. He finished with 9 doubles, 16 home runs, 39 RBIs, finishing with a .292 batting average, which would be the 6th season in his first 7 years in the league in which he had a batting average over .290. He would finish with a .927 OPS, which would be the 3rd consecutive season in which his OPS, his on-base percentage plus his slugging percentage aggregate, was above 900. He finished with a .366 OBP and a .562 slugging percentage, the 4th time in his career he finished with a slugging percentage of over 500. Additionally, he would go on to finish as the MVP runner-up in the National League, as the MVP was given to Freddie Freeman, the elite first baseman for the Atlanta Braves. Additionally, he would go on to be named a Golden Glove winner in the National League for the first time. This would be the fifth time in his MLB career in a row that he would go on to be named a Gold Glove winner. Of course, he would also be named a Silver Slugger in the National League for the first time. This was the third time in a row, in the fourth time in a 5-year stretch in which Mookie Betts was given a Silver Slugger award for what he was able to do for his entire season. And once the Dodgers made the playoffs, they would end up facing off against the Milwaukee Brewers, who came into the playoffs with the 8th seed. They would beat the Brewers 2-0 in the very first wild card round. They would end up beating the Padres 3-0 as they swept them for the division series. They would beat the Braves in 7 to win the National League Championship Series. And then the Dodgers would end up beating the Tampa Bay Rays, who were the American League regular season champs in the World Series, to become the defending World Series champs. The last World Series played was won by the 2020 Los Angeles Dodgers. And of course, Mookie wins was a very integral part of that success. And with this win, Mookie Betts is one of very few players to not only have won a World Series in the American League and the National League, but to be a very big part of both teams while doing so. For the 2020 season, not to mention that he would go on to be named to the All MLB First Team the second year that they had it, because in his last season with Boston in the 2019 season, he was named to the All MLB Second Team. So, of course, being recognized by his peers as one of the best baseball players in baseball should, of course, account for a lot of that. And also, following that 2020 season, this would lead us to where he currently is in this 2021 season. As in 2020, they did not name all-stars, so they were so if they were able, so that would actually end his 5-year all-star streak. But of course, many people, or his 4-year all-star streak, but many people expect him to put up this greatness, as he did win a Gold Glove and Silver Slugger. Is not as though he fell off from being one of the best. But this would transition into this most recent 2021 regular season that has been finished. In this 2021 season, in his age 28 season, his second season with the LA Dodgers, and his 7th full season in the MLB, he would go on to play 122 games in a season where the Dodgers would finish with a 106-56 record and finish second. They finished the runners-up in the National League West, despite finishing and tying for the best record that the Dodgers have had since they've played in Los Angeles. And it looks like the most wins that they've ever had in their franchise history. The season, Mookie Betts would only go on to play 122 games, as this season he would be hit with a little bit of injury. He would be held back with left shoulder and back troubles, but before he would deal with his injuries, he would go on to be named to his 5th All-Star game in his MLB career. In the 122 games he's played so far, he's finished with 123 hits, just by the skin of his teeth, continuing his 8-year streak in which he's finished with more hits than games played in the season. He finished the season with 93 runs. This would be the 6th season in his MLB career he's had at least 90 runs on the season. He finished with 29 doubles, which would be the first full MLB season he's played in which he hasn't hit at least 40 of them. He would finish with 23 home runs and 58 RBIs, finishing with a .264 batting average. That is tied with his 2017 season for the lowest batting average he's ever put together in a season. And he would combine for an .854 OPS, which would be on par with what he did before his MVP season. But additionally, this season he has officially gone down as an all-star. They have not named the Gold Glove or Silver Slugger award winners yet, but if we look at where Mookie Betts is, like I said, he would also go on to help the Dodgers make the playoffs. They made the wild card round where they were able to beat the St. Louis Cardinals just yesterday to make it into the next round where they're going to face off against the Giants. Specifically looking at how Mookie Betts fared, he finished 2 for 4 yesterday, as he was one of the players that was helping the Dodgers get some hits in. But following yesterday's matchups, the Dodgers will continue their playoff run tomorrow, as they are one of 8 teams competing for the World Series. They are the defending World Series champs, so of course it'll be very tough to count them out, especially while they have Mookie Betts on their team. And with that said, that brings us to where we are with Mookie Betts right now, as he is competing for a second straight title and what could be his third World Series title. We're looking at a player that's 1 year away from turning 30, who already has 5 All-Star games, who has 2 World Series championships. He's won the MVP of the American League. He's made it to the All-MLB first team last year. And the year before that, he made it to the very first ever All-MLB second team. He is a 4-time Silver Slugger Award, as he's won 4 of the last 5 years. He's won the last 5 Golden Glove Award winners. He's also won a Defensive Player of the Year. Not to mention that in 2018, when he won the MVP, he was a batting champion, was named to the 30-30 club, and would also go on to hit for the cycle. He would also be named one of the just being named that good as an offensive and defensive player is, of course, a very special thing. And I think that Mookie Betts moving forward could go down as one of the best to ever do it. And I'm very glad to have seen Mookie Betts do what he's been able to do. And with that said, I want to thank everybody for listening to all 26 minutes of this piece. I really do hope all is well, and I want to thank the MLB and Wikipedia websites that I use, of course, with the Pro Baseball Reference, for giving me all the facts and figures that I needed in order to do this episode. And if you ever get a chance to watch him, get a chance to watch Mookie Betts. He's wearing number 50 for the LA Dodgers, who at this moment are competing with the San Francisco Giants for their playoff lives at the moment. I want to thank everyone once again. I hope all is well. I want to wish Mookie Betts a happy 29th birthday, and I will catch everyone with another episode following this one, as Trent Alexander-Arnold, the elite right back for Liverpool, turns 23 today. With that said, thanks for listening to my piece. I hope all is well, and peace out. I'll catch you with more tomorrow, or just right after this.